Fade in. A row of trash cans surrounded by old junk. Spotlight on an open lid. A humble action figure peeks out of the mess. It's Spider-Man, but not like you've ever seen him before. Spider-Man Size Matters is a 2026 game for the PS5, in which you play as a discarded Spidey action figure who can't remember where he comes from. He initially seeks out Doctor Strange for help, but quickly realizes he can't communicate with humans. What he can do, though, is speak with the various statues around New York City. Each statue gifts him a vision of his past, helping him gradually restore his memories. Here, developer Insomniac Games revisits their platforming roots by placing Spidey in these 2.5D side-scrolling levels that cover his backstory, helping his owner through his parents' divorce in childhood, through his adolescent years when he took his stepsister to Coney Island, and finally, well, I'll talk about the last memory later. As a smaller Spider-Man, you're encouraged to rethink how you swing. Your size slingshots you further and faster, and you can hitch rides on passing NPCs, vehicles, and animals. Sometimes you fight paper cutouts come to life. There's even a great side quest where you meet an Ant-Man action figure who's convinced he's the real Ant-Man, trying to grow back to regular size. But to understand the larger context behind Size Matters, you need to understand the state of the games industry 30 years ago. See, in the early 2020s, game studios saw record sales across the board. Consumers were eating good, as the lingo of the day called it, but developers, individual artists, weren't. It was also a time of mass layoffs. Development costs were skyrocketing, and profits lined the pockets of big company CEOs, instead of the hardworking devs whose labor they benefited from. Despite their success with 2023's Spider-Man 2, Insomniac wasn't immune to this. A massive data breach also revealed just how much they poured into developing these titles. The writing was on the wall. AAA game development at that scale was not sustainable. Size Matters is emblematic of what writer Jonathan Lethem called the beauty of second use. Instead of creating art for a specific time period and binding it there through restrictive laws, we should be open to reusing it, adapting it to new contexts. Insomniac hired a small team of modders to essentially remix their older games, and they didn't even upscale the graphics at ground level to match Spidey's new size. Instead, they focused on the new movement, mechanics, and story. The new perspective also meant that players would notice the little things, all the literally small touches that otherwise go underappreciated. Lastly, its development cycle mirrored the days of old, when devs could reuse assets for multiple projects to save time and money, to experiment with new ideas using familiar resources in familiar worlds, to prioritize refinement over the ever-growing quest for more graphics. Games were expensive to make. Was it so wrong to dream of a more efficient pipeline? One that could not only mean more short and sweet games for players, but also a kinder workflow for artists? Let me tell you about that last memory. Near the end of the game, Spidey remembers that his owner had become a father recently, and he hadn't thought it fair to pass down his favorite toy. So he'd bought his daughter the all-new model, a fictional Spider-Man from the future called 2099. 2099 was more durable, more high-tech, and designed to be constantly upgraded. It was here that Spidey 2099 had declared us obsolete and challenged us to combat, before defeating us, resetting us to factory settings, and throwing us into the trash. Now, you do get to re-challenge 2099 and reconcile and find your happy ending and swing off into the sunset with your family. But if all of this sounds like a metaphor for the struggles of trying to keep up with an ever-growing industry in which expectations for tech had skyrocketed past what was sustainable and artist labor had become soul-crushingly undervalued, well, that's not an accident. Tragically, a little ironically, the game didn't sell as well as its mainline counterparts, and they stopped shelling out for its license. It is no longer available on digital storefronts. They never made physical copies. It's very hard to find footage, which is why all I have are 3D screenshots in a measly retro 1080p. But all's not lost. It's 2057, and Spider-Man is about to enter the public domain. I have a sense that the sunshine's coming out to dry up all the rain, and our itsy-bitsy spider just might swing again. Howdy! This was made for an April 1st collab hosted by the Essay Library, titled "This Video Essay Does Not Exist," where we make essays about things that don't... well, you get the idea. Go see the cool stuff everyone else came up with, in more ways than one.